Hey guys, Mr. Wilson here. Today we're looking at using the discriminant notes. At the end of this video, you should be able to use the discriminant to find the number of solutions in a quadratic. Okay, the discriminant is a value that is represented by the expression b squared minus 4ac. You should have seen this before, actually. It was the expression inside the radical in the quadratic formula. Okay, this number can tell us the number of solutions a quadratic will have. Okay, it won't tell us what the solutions are. It'll just tell us how many solutions we have. Okay, so we'll have seen that hopefully as we've been doing the quadratic formula already, but we're just going to bring that here because if we look at this, we can answer questions a little bit more, a little differently, right? We can answer yes or no questions, or is it possible questions. Okay. If the discriminant is positive, then the number on the radical is positive. And a quadratic will have two solutions. If the discriminant is negative, then the number under the radical is negative. Okay, which can't happen. We can't take the square root of a negative number. So the quadratic will have no solutions. Again, remember, no real solutions. And if the discriminant is 0, then the number under the radical is 0, and the quadratic will only have one solution. Okay. So let's look at this. It says, find the number of solutions for each quadratic. Again, very important for us to read these instructions. It is not telling us to solve these quadratics, okay, because that'll be a longer process than finding the number of solutions. Okay, so make sure you're reading those instructions so that you're using your time wisely. Okay, if you're in a test or a quiz situation, you're like, hey, I didn't have enough time. It might have been because you spent time solving a problem that told you to say how many solutions there were and not find out what these solutions were. Okay, all right, so we have that equation b squared minus 4ac. Okay, we should identify a, b, and c. So a is 5 in this problem, b is 12, c is negative 32. So we use b squared, which is 12 squared, minus 4 times a times c. Okay, and I'm just going to do, I always would instruct you probably here to separate these two, okay, and keep the minus between them. So 12 squared is 144. We have 20 times negative 32, which gives us negative 640. And that would be minus negative 640, which turns into plus. So that's 784. So our discriminant is 784. The important thing for us to see is it's positive. So how many solutions are there? 2 solutions. And making sure that we answer the question. We don't want to answer this question with 784 because the question didn't ask us what the discriminant is. It says how many solutions are there. And then we knew from there we had to find the discriminant. And if it were positive, there'd be 2 solutions. If it were negative, there'd be no solutions. And if it's 0, it would be 1 solution. Okay, so those are our options. Remember, that's what we're doing. All right, moving on to the next problem. We have 4x squared plus 3x plus 7. So identifying a, b, and c is where we should start. A is 4, b is 3, c is 7. Okay, b squared minus 4 times a times c. Plug in those numbers in. That's 9 minus 16 times 7, which gives us 112. 9 minus 112 is negative 103. Okay. Again, the important thing is that it's negative. How many solutions does a negative discriminant give us? None. Okay, so no solutions. Number 3, if you look at this, you should notice there's a difference between 3 and 1 and 2, right? In 1 and 2, we had a quadratic that was equal to 0. In 3, we have a x squared minus 8x equals 16. Remember that before we identify a, b, and c, we want to make sure that our quadratic equals 0. Subtracting 16 from both sides, our quadratic will then be x squared minus 8x minus 16 equals 0. Remember, we have to subtract it. It's not just moving it. Okay, and so now I'm going to identify a, b, and c. A is 1, b is negative 8, c is negative 16. And then do b squared minus 4ac. So b squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 16. So negative 8 squared is 64. 4 times 1 is 4, times negative 16 is negative 64. Okay. And then remember, we have the minus in between them. Very important that you're cognizant of your signs here, right? First, that we're squaring negative 8, right? We put that in parentheses so that we know it's a positive 64. Secondly, that we're grouping our 4ac together, because 4 times negative 16 gives us negative 64. Okay, and grouping it like I told you in the first time helps us remember we're minusing a negative, which turns it into plus. So this is 128. Our discriminant is 128, which means there's 2 solutions. Okay, we could have messed up and got this sign in between them wrong and got 0 instead of 128. So again, just displaying the importance of making sure that we keep all of our numbers in line. Okay, number 4, a is 4, b is negative 12, c is 9, b squared minus 4ac, and that's negative 12 squared minus 4 times a times c. So we get 144. 16 times 9 gives us 144. Okay, and then there's a minus in between those. 144 minus 144 is 0. That is one solution. A very common mistake here is that we get 0 when somebody says, well, 0 solutions. Nope. Remember that if our discriminant is 0, right, one of our 3 options is either positive, negative, or 0, then there's only one solution. All right, let's see how we would use that. Okay, because typically when we're looking at the discriminant, it's just part of our quadratic formula, so it might not be a reason for us to look at that part too in depth outside of saying, can we continue our problem or not? Okay, but here is when we probably want to use that. A toy rocket is launched off a roof with initial velocity of 70 feet per second. The height of the rocket during its flight is given by h equals negative 16t squared plus 70t plus 21. Will the rocket ever reach 100 feet in the air? Explain. Okay, so to figure this out, they gave us this equation, right? And we sometimes get overly bogged down by story problems, but they summarize why they gave us the equation, and then they gave us the equation. So we're here. H equals negative 16t squared plus 70t plus 21. We see that H stands for the height of the rocket, T stands for the time. Okay, so in order to figure this out, we need to put the 100 in, because our question asks, will it ever reach 100 feet? Put 100 in for the height, okay? Since we want to know if the height can be reached. Okay, so we rewrite this equation, and we'll say 100 equals negative 16t squared plus 70t plus 21. Okay. However, in order to do this, we need to have our quadratic equal to 0 before we solve it. So we need to move that number to the other side of the equal sign. Again, we move it algebraically, not just picking it up and putting it down. We have to subtract 100 from each side. And so that gives us negative 79, I think, on that side. So we'll have negative 16t squared plus 70t minus 79 equals 0. All right, so now this is our quadratic formula to see, does our rocket reach 100 feet? This equation is only for when the rocket is specifically 100 feet off the ground. Okay, if I wanted to know when the rocket was going to be 50 feet off the ground, my equation would look different, right? Because I would have set it up like 50 for my height equals negative 16t squared plus 70t plus 21, and then I would have wanted to subtract 50 from both sides. Okay, so now this discriminant that we've thought of and kind of adjusted our equation so that we can answer this yes or no question, right? Because it's a question that says, will it reach 100 feet? If you said yes, that's the answer to the question. If you said no, that's the answer to the question. Okay, if it says, will it reach 117 feet, and you said 2.3 seconds, it doesn't make sense as an answer to the question. Okay, so you would need to have yes or no attached to that to make it make sense. Okay, so therefore we can use this discriminant with this equation to see how many times the rocket will reach 100 feet. Okay, here's our possibilities. If our discriminant's positive, it tells us our rocket will hit 100 feet twice. Okay, if our answer is negative, it will tell us that it won't hit, right? It'll be no solutions. There's no times where our rocket reaches 100 feet. And if our discriminant is 0, right, this is the value of the discriminant, then it will say at one time at its maximum height, the rocket will reach 100 feet. So now we have b squared minus 4ac. Our a value is negative 16. Our b value is 70. Our c value is negative 79. And we plug all that in. So 70 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 79, or negative 79. Okay, making sure we're paying attention to all of our signs. Right, so we kind of section this off, make sure we're doing these things right. 70 squared should give us 4,900. The other side's a little harder to do, but let's do that. We got negative 64 times negative 79. 64 times 79 gives us 5,056. So positive 5,056. Okay, and so sign in between there is minus 4,900 minus 5,056, and that gives us negative 156. It's a negative. Will the rocket reach 100 feet? No. The rocket will not reach 100 feet because the discriminant is negative, meaning the rocket won't reach this height or can't reach this height. Okay, and so there we go. We answered this question, this yes or no question, with an answer with reasoning behind it. Okay, all right, so that's using the discriminant to find out how many solutions there are in a problem. That can help you out if it's a good place to start as you're simplifying your quadratic formulas as well if you haven't been doing that. All right, see ya.